We're live.
Okay, cool. Welcome everyone to this January 17th Sewer Advisory Committee meeting. We're about to get started and want to go ahead. Approval of the minutes.
Also moved.
What?
Oh, nothing.
He made a motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, right. A second? Everyone saw
I'll
them? They were
second.
sent out, right? Okay. Right. Any discussion?
I got one now.
No? Okay. Great. And onward with the capital projects update.
Okay, storage building at the treatment plant. This was carried
Before we
over-
get started, I haven't met him.
Oh, you have? Oh,
No,
I'm
no,
so
none,
sorry.
I don't know.
You're on work.
I know I imagine he's an engineer.
He's on the work release program.
Ram, yeah, I was wondering.
Intern, yeah. No, my name's Thomas. I'm the Public Works Supervisor in the Water Sewer Utility Manager.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Jim Hart
I'm Susan Way
from the district. We're
and Jerry
commissioner.
Lumberg.
Jerry Lundberg.
And Randy?
I've
And
been talking
Randy?
for a couple weeks.
And Michael? And Michael? Great, okay.
Have an exciting city today. I've seen police
quite a bit of
siren-
action.
Oh, yeah.
They're headed out of town.
And Jim, just so you know, I asked Thomas to join. I just saw that we put the pump station that was put on the agenda, and I just said, if there's questions that need to be answered, Thomas can. More than I can because he's been involved with the.
I just didn't know who he was and was
Yeah.
curious.
We needed somebody
He's
dressed
been
in
a
sharp
wonderful
here.
addition.
Yeah.
Yes, to the city. Okay, let's see.
Ready to carry on?
Go ahead,
Okay.
thank you.
So the storage building, that was a project that we're carrying over into 2018 so we can get it completed. We were able to complete our CMU wall last year, towards the end of the year. Matter of fact, I think it was in December. We actually had to get a contractor out of the Tri-Cities to come over to do the CMU. That's how difficult it was to acquire a contractor to do that CMU. It was quite the challenge. So we still have some remaining work to do on that, of course, which will be the wall framing, siding, roof structure and roofing, and insulation, wallboard, and painting. Our centrifuge replacement project is going extremely well. As you know, we removed our existing centrifuge and we're in the process of installing a new screw press. It has been procured and placed in the room. We just completed our structural bolting, or we're completing it this week. We'll have our special inspection for that. We have a lot of special inspections based on the engineered documents for the structural. We did have to go through a complete review of the building because there was inconsistencies between drawings and the structural information that was in the different prints. Once that was done and we had that complete structural review, then we proceeded. We'll be placing the equipment in place hopefully by tomorrow, if not first part of next week. There's a lot of coordination that has to go on with to keep the plant processing and move forward with what we're doing and do this project. And then we'll have our welder out in a couple weeks. We'll have our special inspections for all of our pins that we're putting in to tie the equipment down to the building structure, and then we'll just keep moving forward. Currently, our tentative schedule for startup of that equipment is around the first week of March. So we'll have everything done by then. That's our plan. Our MBR project, we did reach out to several suppliers to see if there was a more cost-effective means to replace those MBRs. As you know, that's a capital project slated for 2018. We were unsuccessful due to the design to find any other manufacturers that could do those without major retrofits to the system. One of the issues that we ran into is the design of the system was a very early design that was designed back in 2000, 2001. There's been a lot of changes and upgrades that have happened over the last 17 years, and the current systems will not easily change, which puts us back basically with the original manufacturer. We did run into a little bit of an issue with that simply because GE Water was being their membrane technologies were being acquired by Suez. And so that took several months before they could really, there was kind of this interim period between Suez and GE. That was completed in December, and we're anticipating our our proposals for the project to be in within the next 2 weeks. And then we'll move forward with procuring that, and we're looking at about a 6 to 7 month window before it'll be finalized once all of the paperwork's done.
I think I remember previously we talked about the fact that these cassettes that we currently have were so old that the question was, if we get replacement cassettes, are they going to fit the current, whatever replacement cassettes they are? Do they currently fit our infrastructure? Will we have, even if we get it from the original supplier, will they still need to be retrofit for the new cassettes?
Yes, so the issue that we had with the other cassettes was there was basically a structural fatigue issue that was happening through
Right.
the actual cassette frames themselves. The facility ended up with the largest cassettes that were ever made in that model. And we had a lot of structural failures. If you remember, I brought a lot of pictures and stuff for the framework so that you could take a look at the cracks. I had a lot of welding. We reinforced with a lot of steel and wraps and everything else to keep them kind of pasted together. What we're looking at now is there's going to be some modifications to those. All the existing hangers and stuff will work. They will modify brackets to hang on those, and we will be getting the updated version of these type of cassettes. They're more modular. They can be replaced. A single module can be replaced, whereas if we had a problem with one of them, we had to disassemble 32 modules to get, potentially to the one and then reassemble everything, which took a lot of time. This one's basically a plug and play. It allows us for quick removal or replacement in case we have issues. It will fit the existing infrastructure. There are a few things that will need to be done that will be part of the proposal. We'll have to have our blowers resheathed to meet the air requirements that the newer membranes require, and we're going to have some reprogramming done for some of the control valving so that it works with the newer modules. Still gives us the same capacity we have now, allows for the additional capacity, and we'll have the latest and greatest.
Yeah, and I asked the question because of when you've gone out to other vendors, and the answer was like you said, theirs would have to be refit. And I'm thinking,
Right.
well, what I heard from you before, that even if we do get the same vendor, there's going to be some modifications needed because when we
Right.
bought them, they were outdated back in
2001.
Right.
Yeah, it was
So-
basically
so
an
it does
obsolete
that-
model in 2003.
So would we?
Oh.
Is it still viable to use another vendor?
It is, but when we looked at it, the cost of the retrofits that would be required for another vendor's cassettes
Are
would
greater
be an
than that.
exceedance of what we would currently be paying.
Right.
So one of the
And that's where you've got to weigh the.
Yeah, one of the big-
Would the new ones be even better or more
Right.
applicable to what we need for the additional cost? And so,
Right.
and I don't want to go
One
there.
of the biggest costs is the programming. So if we had an additional vendor come in and they hadn't really designed that type of system, they would basically have to rewrite all their programming to try to accommodate our current equipment. And as you know, the software is proprietary for each vendor. So therefore, when Suez acquired GE, of course they acquired all those rights, GE is able to make modifications to the programming without having to rewrite everything. They've done several of these retrofits. In my last conversation with GE before Suez had taken over, we were one of only a handful of plants that even had those modules.
Right.
And so they've done some conversions already, so this is not something that's
New
new
to
to them as far as doing the programming changes.
Are we using obsolete equipment, do you think? I mean, you're saying an early design of 2000, that doesn't seem that old to me. But if there's only one manufacturer that can make membranes for it, are we going down the right path?
There's multiple, there's a few manufacturers that basically make the membranes for all the major suppliers of those membranes. As far as the obsolescence of the equipment, it was a pre-purchase and early design on the Xenon Z-Weed, which was modified in, I think it was 2003, to a different type because they realized they had a lot of problems with it. The city and district had pre-purchased and taken acceptance of the equipment for
Before it
that
was made?
long before the upgrade ever happened.
No, yeah.
Right. So they had done the pre-purchase and acquired all the equipment, and it sat in storage for several years before the upgrade of the plant happened, and then it got installed. So basically, when the equipment went into place, you know, it was 4 to 5 years old. And one of the big problems that we had is during startup, when we did have problems with equipment that was still warrantied by GE at the time, who take our Xenon at the time, who had taken it over, is that we had to replace the equipment with similar but different equipment, because some of the equipment that was originally supplied and that we had held in storage was obsolete, no longer made. There have been improvements. The cassettes are a classic example of the improvements that had happened during the time of purchase and acquisition and actual installation. They were already into the next generation model before we had even started construction. So,
And the dollar amount and the number of cassettes that are being replaced.
well, we're going to be replacing for a flow of 1.7 million. We had 15 cassettes that had 32 modules in them. So,
And the dollar amount.
the last one we had checked when it was with GE, we were looking at 1.4 million. With Suez, I'm hoping, since they kept most, if not all, of the people in that division from GE when they did the acquisition, brought them over to Suez, that we're only looking for minor increases that were, you know, subject to whatever, you know, index costs for appreciation of value are over the last few years. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have a better handle of it. We'll be able to discuss what's included in their new proposal and what we can do to keep those costs to the minimum. We did, however, budget for $1.4 million for the replacement of those cassettes.
Tell them about the, you know, when you change subjects anyway, tell them about the radiator for the generator. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay. Any further questions on the membranes?
So what I heard you say is it's 1.4 million, plus it's gonna be a little more because of possibly because of the change. With
We
that,
don't know. Yeah.
which you're just kind of,
Right, I'm assuming.
but then what I'm hearing you say also is there gonna be some infrastructure, different kinds of changes needed also, that would be beyond that, so.
Minor on
Okay,
that.
so-
Most of it will be programming and modification of existing equipment to make sure that. it
Maybe a
works.
couple 100,000, maybe more. I'm not holding it to it, I'm just gonna, but it's not gonna be less. In your best,
Yeah.
in your best.
It's not gonna be less
I
than
would be
1.4.
surprised. I've never seen anything come in less. I would expect more, if not the same. But yeah,
Okay.
it would be a pleasant surprise. But I do anticipate that even if we took the 1.4 and you know, we added index costs over the last few years, if I was to guess, I would say anywhere between 1.4 and 1.7. You know, just a guesstimation. But we're also dealing with a different company.
Exactly.
We don't have that relationship with that company, you know, so we'll just have to see where it comes in, so.
Okay, thank you.
Radiator, so the question was asked about the radiator on the original generator. Matter of fact, that was a project that I was working on today. The radiator on one of the 2 gen sets that we have sprung a leak about a month and a half, 2 months ago. We pinned it down to the radiator, we replaced some hoses and found out it was actually the radiator. It was an intermittent leak that was hard to identify. When we went to find out if we could procure a replacement radiator, what we found is that there was nothing available in the United States for that replacement. So that forced us into a repair of the radiator, which required that we bring in a portable gen set to act in place of the one while it's down, which was hooked up today. Tomorrow the radiator will be removed and sent over for a recore. And that's all because we have a Class 2 reliability requirement with our NPDES permit, so we have to have that backup generation. But from what I understand, the information I have, this radiator was put in 86, 85, 86.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But because of that, you know, you got to have another generator sitting there in case something goes wrong. And what was the total cost, pretty much? It about blew me out of the water when I heard it.
I don't have that information with me,
You
I'm
don't?
sorry.
Okay.
And we're not talking about car radiator, we're talking size of this.
Yeah, it's about the size of 3 of those window banks.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
big.
We're not putting a Chevy radiator in there.
A little larger than Etzel radiator.
Yeah.
Not too much larger. That's
Yeah.
always a pretty big car.
Never a dull moment.
Just another challenge.
Not down there. Everything is, can't be replaced. Fix
Anyway,
it.
that
Not
concludes my
easily.
report on what's
No.
going on. Let's see, where was that at? Boiler room fire. Forget that one. So I think Michael provided you all a kind of a spreadsheet, which was a rough order of magnitude from Young and Associates. Young and Associates is a consultant company, a construction consultant company, is acting on behalf of our claims adjuster, McLaren's and Associates, who is acting for our insurance company for the damage that happened on the September 19th fire. And as you can see on the second page, that rough order of magnitude cost, they're anticipating somewhere around $530,000 for the repairs to everything. When I had talked to gentlemen from Young and Associates and our claims adjuster, they both feel that that's in line. We were hoping to reduce some of that cost, but they felt that in most cases where they've gone out and done these restoration damages, they found that usually this rough order of magnitude is pretty close to what the costs are for the overall repairs and restoration. Currently, the insulation, sheet rock, and the fire seal has been done. 99.9% of the cleanup, matter of fact, they're going to be out finished tomorrow. They've got about 3 or 4 hours left in the cleanup, which is to finish the lower smoke seal, because they had to remove all the scaffolding last week from replacing the sheet rock on the ceiling. And then there's some things that our staff are going to be doing, cleaning the internal components of all the blowers and equipment that are inside the room, where we don't want to give them access because of the high voltage and things that we have to go through. It's easier for us to pace and go through at our own speed and change systems than it is to try to meet the needs of a contractor, because we have so many pieces of equipment that are running, and with that one gone, we have a little bit of a redundancy issue since we're our redundant blower. So we're going to have to do some juggling to make that happen. And so they'll pretty much be done with what they're doing. I have purchased the blower. We're expecting that to be here somewhere around March, April. And then once that happens, I've also got some contractors going to come in and give us costs for removal and installation of that blower. We were able to work with our claims adjuster and get a more energy efficient blower. So that's going to help us. One of the things this new blower will do too, because the costs were very minimal between an exact replacement and the new blower, it'll have a better turn down on it. It'll give us more flexibility in the operation of that blower to help control our processes. So we're moving along. We're thinking that this is probably going to be wrapped up sometime in the June, July range with everything, hopefully sooner. I never trust vendors when they say they're going to deliver something. First they told us it was 20 to 22 weeks out for delivery. Then they came back and they said they could get it to us at the end of April, and then they called back and said, well, it's going to be May, March, April, May, so it's going around back and forth on when their delivery is. But their original contract stated 20 to 22 weeks. So if we get it any sooner, that's a plus for us, but we don't anticipate it for at least 20 to 22 weeks.
Does this mean it's all covered by insurance?
With the exception of our deductible.
All but our deductible. We have a-
So what columns are deductible?
Well, we have, this is the cost for doing the improvements, and we have a $25,000 deductible.
Okay. Well, it's small compared to 532,000.
Yeah.
Still,
A lot of money.
yeah, it is.
That's the second fire in that room from a blower.
Yeah,
Is it,
The first one happened during
Yep.
construction.
it's the second one.
No.
is that fairly common? I mean, in the industry? Is it,
I'm not gonna say that anything like that is common, but the unfortunate thing that happens in an industrial facility like that is when something does go wrong, it goes wrong very fast and it affects a lot of equipment, and it can be very costly very quickly. If there's no more questions, that concludes my report.
Any other questions? No? It'd be nice to have that all done, huh?
A lot of things have done, yeah.
Storage building,
Yeah, really.
Didn't happen the day before our last meeting. Maybe 2 days.
Was it?
The fire?
Yeah.
So we'll go on to the Port Orchard Marina Pump House.
Yeah, we sent this out several weeks ago. Appreciate getting a copy of the report that the city had provided. We wanted to be able to respond to it, and we did, and we sent copies of this out to our board members and the supervisory committee. But we thought that this had been something that had been discussed on a minimal level in the past. But there's been other reports that have been provided in the past regarding dealing with this issue. And now that the city's working on its marina lift station, that'd be good to bring it to your attention about some of the issues and concerns. So thought I'd put it on the agenda to have some conversations, just make you aware of some of the concerns and some of the challenges that Randy has. So maybe you can kind of highlight and kind of touch base on some of the issues.
The letter pretty much sums up a lot of the issues that we have. We want to, of course, the city and the district both want to have the ability to use the capacity of the plant. A rated capacity and actually where we're at are varying. If you remember back, was it November, October we did the presentation. I did the presentation on the three things that we're looking at for the plant. It's not only the hydraulic capacity, it's the BOD loading, the suspended solids loading coming in the plant, and we have an 85% limit on our permit before it starts kind of sparking ecology's eyes that we're kind of approaching capacity of the plant. And I didn't bring that information with me, but if you recall, we were getting up there fairly close to those numbers based upon what we could operate at in our current condition with the MBR. One of the problems that we have in the plant, and it's been an ongoing problem since I've been there, and according to the logbooks going back, it's been a problem for many years at that facility, is there is a sellability issue that occurs in the activated sludge process that nobody can seem to pin down. And a couple of years ago, I made it a goal that we were going to resolve this issue. And we tried various operational scenarios. I talked to very competent people who have spent years in the industry, PhDs, to come in and look at all of our data, talk to us about our operation, and give us some insight or some recommendations and suggestions. And one of the things that keeps coming up that they're pointing to that is a real problem is the inconsistencies in flows. And those surge flows are stressing the microorganisms, and it creates some problems. And so there's really no way for the plant to deal with it. If we had some large equalization basin, then of course we could take the flows and then we could regulate what comes into the plant and stabilize those flows. But the problem that we have is we have 4 lines coming into the facility, and the city is one of those lines. 3 of the lines from West Sound are gravity lines, or excuse me, 2 lines are gravity lines. We have 1 force main and the city's force main. The city's force main, we'll just call it 50% of the flow comes in, but it comes in very cyclic. And so we'll see flows of 0 from the city, and then sometimes they ramp up 1,600, 2,000 gallons in a matter of seconds. And that just creates these surges. So if you can picture a mud puddle that has been sitting very aqueous and it's very clear on top, and if you take your hand and you bounce it on top, it'll start lifting all that mud and debris up and silt that out and make it very turbid. That's the problem that we have in our final clarifiers, is that the hydraulic changes are creating a lot of turbidity and a lot of problems that we're having in the plant. We turn out good numbers, but if you look at our settleability characteristics, they don't explain the numbers. The plus that we have is that we are below our hydraulic capacity, but the cyclic flows that are surging in and out of the plant are really creating a lot of problems for us. Then
Plus a few years ago, we thought we were gonna solve the problem. We spent money to have variable speed controllers and to the pumps, but that never happened. And I mean, everybody's shocked. I mean, the district's shocked, city was shocked when they found out there's no variable speed controls down there. We spent money, both the city and the district, to fix this problem. But
When you say years ago, what are you talking about?
I don't remember how many years, but it's
2, 5, 10,
no.
15?
Probably 7, I'm gonna guess. And I know that, so there was some money spent that a contractor got, we got nothing for,
What?
Spent by whom?
by the city. But we don't know what, I think
Mark is
yeah,
aware of this.
he is aware of it. And we talked about it at one of the SAC meetings. But the thing is that basically this, without having variable speeds, it's basically doing a big flushing action on the plant and making it tougher for the settleability.
Like after a TV ad or something, everyone
Yeah.
flushes at the same time.
Yeah, but if everybody,
Commercial break, coming.
yeah,
Commercial break, yeah.
yeah, or Super Bowl commercial, in the middle of the Super Bowl. But the biggest thing is that if it was flowing steady, the plant can take it, but the big
Certain
flushes
decision.
are really tough on it. And
Is
it's
it-
been some.
Is it the city of the 4 lines, of the 4 incoming lines you meant, is it the cities that is the most variable?
Yeah, so when we look at the flow characteristics coming into the facility, the only defined flow meter that we have is on the city's line, and that was put in during the upgrade. So we basically interpolate whatever the city's flow is, and the remainder to be from the West Sound's conveyance lines. So we can get a pretty good picture based on those flow characteristics and create, a graph on West Sounds versus the cities. And the cities, you can see, is like this. And the cities knows that this issue occurs. But what you have to understand is back in 1984, when that facility was converted, it was common for lift stations to have draw-fill systems. The big problem that we have at the facility is you have one line coming in, there's no attenuation of that energy coming into the facility. So it just all comes at once. I did look into the money that was spent to help this problem. I couldn't find any documentation, but I was able to go back to the original construction engineer that was overseeing the project during the upgrade. And he didn't have any of the records to go by, but his recollection was there was some work done. That work was minimal due to the inability to do much programming, but there was some programming, and from what I understand, they looked at the levels on your floats to go ahead and make that station pump, and they did do some work to try to trim some of that down. But there again, without the ability to change the speed of the pumps based on the fill rate of your wet well, it basically fills up and then just sucks it all down. It's not based on any kind of level other than the high level that needs to pump or a low level to shut off. So, but not to the level to eliminate the cyclic flow problems that we have.
So, the rating for the plant is X. Now, is that based on part of this problem we're having where it won't settle? Because
No.
that isn't part of it.
Basically, the
This-
rating
this is-
on
this-
the plant starts with the dispersion zone for our outfall. It
So
goes
this
from
just
there.
deals with infrastructure, the wear and tear on it from,
Right.
okay.
So when we have these surge flows come in, and our equipment reads the high flows, it all tries to ramp up because we have control systems that step everything up. It goes through a process, the flow stops, our equipment's still ramping up, it realizes it's down, our equipment starts going the other way, and then the flows come in. So we're doing this all the time.
Right.
And we have tried changing ramp speeds and trying to sync our equipment, change flow signal locations, and we just cannot get anything that smooths anything out. The flows are just so erratic that it makes it very difficult.
And we had a meeting with the Department of Ecology a few months ago because we got dinged by them over the fact that we had some issues caused by that. Maybe you kind of
Well, yeah,
talk
and you know,
about
it's
that.
hard to pin specific issues on anything, but one of the things that they are aware of with us providing the report is that we do have some issues. When the city had sent its engineering report into ecology to talk about the marina pump station, of course, it didn't define the issues, but basically we've gone through different permit managers. There's been a lot of management change over at ecology. Fortunately, we don't have the last permit person that we had, and I'm sure you guys have dealt with him. But, it's just kind of opening the door that, both the city and the district have clearly identified a problem, or the plant and the city have identified a problem. And of course, as you know, at that point, we have an obligation to start addressing that problem somehow. We can't just let it go, especially knowing where we're at as far as our rated capacity versus what we're looking at based on, the cyclic nature of the flows and the disruption it's causing in the treatment plant for the biological treatment.
So do the cyclic patterns repeat day to day? Is there anything that ever repeats that you can identify?
Constantly.
So it's always
Yeah, we
cyclic.
can tell when you're pumping and when it's filling, like this.
But I mean, at night,
At night,
it goes down and it ramps up for
it
the day of
spaces
use.
a little bit more, but it's still doing this. And you really don't have any control over it with the equipment and the controls that you have because it is a draw fill system. Unless, Mike, you know of some magic answer other than VFDs and pumps that can be controlled by VFDs. You basically would, more likely than not, and this is going to depending on the information that your engineers provide, they're going to want to look at a lot of data to come up with some type of reasonable resolution at the best cost. But more likely than not, what I anticipate they're going to come up with is they're going to want to come up with a leveling system that is measuring your level and increase in height and then ramping your pumps. And then as it goes down, they'll want to slow them down. And they'll just, instead of doing this, they'll try to get them to start doing a little smoother, and that will help considerably. They're not going to be able to provide a consistent, even flow all the time. I just don't see it. You folks don't have the storage capacity here, and there's so many variations that happen diurnally with the different flow characteristics that come into your facility that we see. We have the same thing that happens in our facility. We just don't have a big enough service area where we're having a lot of people up during the night. So we kind of see this dead zone between 2:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And then all of a sudden everything starts peaking.
And then we wake up.
And the real disappointing thing with this
You have those guys
is
in the
you
middle of
can't
the night.
go in during the Super Bowl and see what happened at halftime because it's just, it'd be nice to go in and say, look, at halftime, the flows went way up and then they dived off. Or you could tell these commercials were good or bad, but, yeah. So.
And I think the conclusion of the letter was that there were two reports done, the 1994 Kennedy Jenks report, which did an evaluation of the marina pump station, and then the BHC report, is both of them reached the same conclusion. We're just supportive of that, the variable speed pumps, making those improvements, making improvements to the control system. Those would be very helpful to get done. So we're just encouraging those get done. I know you got some big issues to address with the condition.
Yeah.
But
From the, go ahead.
well, the thing I'm thinking about is that once again we're back to having problems with the plant because of the pump station. We have money that we've been collecting for the new hookups for the treatment plant, and this is connected to the treatment plant the way we can manage it, and maybe we can take some of that money that we have in lieu of assessment money and try to solve this problem.
What do you mean,
Well,
we?
they've
In
got,
other words, it's affecting the plant. So,
Yeah, I got that, but what do you mean, we? Whose money?
It's the lieu of assess money that we have got from the city, picked up money, we picked up money.
Yeah, right.
But both of them should be put together to fix the problem. In other words, take it out of both entities' amount to make this plant run more smoother. Because it's, for the community, that's the way I look at it. We gotta fix the variable speeds so that we don't have these
Is
Mm-hmm.
there
into the plant.
control over the other 3 lines, like the forest main? Can you control that?
Not at this point in time, but currently what is happening within the district is we are expanding our SCADA system so that we can get better reads on what's happening at our lift stations. And then once that, we have a better read, then if we do see issues, then we should be able to address those. One of the things that we're fortunate about is most of our larger lift stations are towards the end of the line, so we get a lot of attenuation of that flow coming in. There's still changes in variability, don't get me wrong, but it's not as predominant as what's happening with the city. But yes, once that information is brought back, we're able to really look at it and trend it over a period of time. There's changes can be made in our system too that will help with that.
yeah. But I kind of caution on that because the Marina Lift Station, and then we went through this kind
Yeah.
of battle and debate over ownership of that, because that is their responsibility, and we're just
Yeah.
wanting to see those improvements made. But we can kind of talk about that because we do have variable speed motors at many of our lift stations. Just a matter of having
There's
the
a lot of
proper
being
controls.
upgraded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So could they be programmed complementary? So when we have a huge surge, they have a huge...
But we are taking donations.
And yes, that is
Hopefully
something
we get
that
some
could
free money from-
potentially happen with the 2 SCADA systems. And one of the things that, and I've talked to city staff about, is one of the things that everybody likes is redundancy and easy access to things if things go wrong. So one of the recommendations is we have a lot of very similar equipment. Maybe not going to be able to match because of the size of your larger pumps. However, if we did get same manufacturer, same styles, those type of things, we could assist in the future like the plant does. We have primary pieces of equipment, we have secondary. If we have something go wrong with the primary, we know what we can pull offline and rob parts from until we can get equipment in to replace, especially when it comes to, control systems. That becomes pretty critical. And there's a lot of companies that are here right in Seattle. A lot of stuff is available with 1 or 2 days, so you're not waiting for it. We already went through that where, we had something from Sweden and we'd have to wait for 4 weeks, and something from Germany, and that we're going away from that. The price may have been attractive at the time and it was, flashy and shiny, but in the long
Maintenance.
term, it's
Yeah.
just not a very viable option.
So I'll jump in and just give a brief update from the city's perspective here. And I want to start off with 2 things. One, we appreciated receiving the letter. It's always nice to have support from your partners in crime here when we're, trying to struggle with a lot of different things at the city. And then secondly, I've been here for about 3 years, and Randy and I talk occasionally, and I would probably have to talk to Randy a lot more if he wasn't so good at what he does. So we really appreciate having Randy as.
This Randy?
He's going to do that. He's going to be there another 20 years.
Was that 20 or 50?
No, it's
He's
it's
our
the truth.
MVP player.
And we talk, through some of these issues. So just brief history, just so that everybody's aware. In 2012, the city applied for and received preliminary grant funding from FEMA Hazard Mitigation to repair or rehab the Marina Pump Station. It's fully funded, it's $4 million, and then through 2011-2012 timeframe, they had massive fires in eastern Washington. They ended up pulling that money to go over there, and so we lost that funding. It was kind of a preliminary, hey, we're going to be able to fund this. Everybody was excited, and then plug got pulled. Then all of a sudden, we started really looking at our CIP. There was a lot of work done by some consultants and by the city to try and say, how can we come up with a fiscally constrained CIP? The Marina Pump Station our largest purchase in the water sewer utility. So we weren't able to tackle that one right away. Recently, there has been some, just an evaluation of our CIP and looking at critical infrastructure and understanding, the city is faced with some extreme development demand right now. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're being smart about how we allocate our funds, whether we leverage things, we use cash, all those sort of analyses. We have a finance director who's absolutely phenomenal. Alan was just as good. He's kind of like mini Alan. It's like smooth transition. But through that process, we decided we wanted to be aggressive about trying to get some more grant funding. Not that the city doesn't have the capacity to do something at this time, but we, if we can get a grant, we want to. We're being told that we have a very competitive project with the Clean Water Revolving Fund for ecology. And so next week, we're supposed to hear the draft obligation list and see if we get some of that money, whether it's grant or loan, and what that looks like, financing package. So we're excited to see those results.
How much did you apply for your clean water?
We applied for the full 4.2 or 4.1. So depending on what that funding package looks like, if there's a match required, all those sorts of things, the city's looking at financing options to bring to the council and talk to them about those options and what the policy directive is. So the conversations are actively happening. Randy's 100% correct in the analysis of the problems of the Marina Pump Station. We are looking at, capacity, VFDs. There's a lot of different scenarios. Last Friday, we closed on proposals for consultants to design the lift station. We had 5 different consultants, and we're in the process of evaluating those proposals, and we'll select 3 for interview. There's some creative ideas out there, and some really traditional thought, and then there's some really radical thought, and we want to find that unique blend that creates a very robust station, but also is economically feasible. So we're excited about that. We too heard this rumor that somebody paid for something, and Mark and I spent a lot of time looking for it, digging through boxes, and we talked with finance, could find no record of any expenditure. Our ghost theory at this point is that more than likely it was something that was called Schedule D in a contract that, due to funding, never got completed.
Okay.
But just like Randy said, we've not found documentation that supports that. So, that's what we think might have happened, but we definitely can't find anything in our ledgers that say money was expended to anybody. So that was kind of something we looked into. We do have, like I said, a very aggressive CIP, and we have a lot of other sewer needs, but we are starting to try and make sure that we're following our comp plan, which was legislatively adopted by our board or our council members, and if we're going to deviate from that, we're going to need to get their guidance on that. So, hoping that we get this grant funding, fingers crossed, and we should know more pretty soon.
Not good. Now, with the grant money from the state, does the legislators have to vote on what the clean water gives, or is that an automatic?
No, so the Clean Water Program usually gets between $100 and $200 million. This year there's, let's see, $407 million worth of projects that were put in for.
Yeah.
360 some for loan and 52 million for grant. But it's not to be confused with the capital budget that we're hearing could be passed next week. Yeah, it's not tied up in the Hearst decision.
Okay, good.
On that happy note, right? How much longer can you last without the wave action?
Well, it's been 34 years.
Yeah, really, it's like.
It would be nice to resolve it. Simply, if we were looking at the loading capacity and things that are happening in the plant, and it wasn't as close as it was to that 85%, it would be, okay, we know what's coming, we'll have to deal with it. But we also know that the city is looking for some pretty expansive growth in its UGA area. And that is definitely going to, not only your SFRs, but you can only anticipate there's gonna be some commercial or some business growth that's gonna come in too, and that's gonna add significantly to, you know, the hydraulics, the loading, and those things. And we just want to make sure that we stay away from those issues. And basically, we need to have at the plant the capacity that our ratepayers paid for, and we need to be able to maintain that and operate, you know, the collection conveyance system and the plant, so that we can utilize, you know, what we have, not run limp because of, you know, outstanding issues, whether it be at the plant, whether it be in West Sound's collection conveyance system or the city's collection conveyance system. It's smarter to deal with these issues now than it is to end up 5 or 7 years from now and go, we've got a real problem, what do we do? So, you know, I think it's prudent to go ahead and take those steps and really start looking at this and addressing it, because it has been a problem. It has been noted back in, you know, was it 1994, 96 with the...
94.
Yeah, 94 with Kennedy Jinx. I was unaware of that report, and I knew there was issues, and we had another consultant come in and look at everything. And then we basically, if you look at the two reports, are very similar from 1994 to 2015. So, you know, wish we would have had that information.
It wasn't just a
before.
different name on the top, was there?
White out.
Well, I think that the important thing
Yeah.
is, from our perspective to note, is that we are working very closely with our finance director to come up with options to bring to the council. I'm hoping that we're bringing those options this summer, which just looks at financing opportunities and what, you know, debt service options or cash options, or, you know, we also would really love to see the first 6 months or so of, you know, we're being told it's going to be a huge year for CFCs, but we want to actually see that happen before we start banking on it. So I think if we've gone this long, we'd probably go another 6 months before we have a real decision made. And we'd like to really be thoughtful about how we finance the project.
Yes.
So the end is maybe in sight.
Or the beginning.
At the end?
So,
End of the beginning.
the FEMA money is just no longer,
The hazard mitigation money that we applied for in 2012, yeah, that was pulled, and I don't know that we ever saw another application for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was, you know, redistributed at the legislature. I'm not aware.
So we should have spent it already? We didn't spend it soon enough?
You
No, it
never-
was never officially
Should
given
have
to
gotten
us.
it and
Yeah.
I know.
spent it right
Should've
away.
got that credit card from.
yeah.
Right. But, you know,
We sat on it.
it's always hard to talk about grant funding
Yeah.
because you just never know, but a very similar project was.
Well, you'll get clean water money, just a matter how much of it's gonna be free money
Yeah,
or low interest credit card money.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we have an application in for about $500,000, and we're probably not gonna get either one of them this go around because we haven't formed a ULID for, in the event that Phillips Road, or not Phillips Road, but the Bethel corridor area goes through, but, and the way that, and the struggle is they first, of course, allocate money to those projects, consider them loans, and then they then determine those that rank higher will get some of the grant monies. But it's unfortunate because you know, the way that we're going at the federal and state level is less and less money were available for. We used to have free money, and then grant money was available, replaced by loan money, and then a lot of the loan money's going away,
Right.
which is unfortunate. And our utilities are going to be ultimately paying for it. But good luck. And I've not heard anybody any response back from the college for a few weeks. But when do you expect to hear from them?
We believe that the list will be out next week.
Next week. Yeah.
So, and I will echo the same statement. Our permit person and our new regional engineer have been very awesome.
Yeah. Work with, yes. Yeah.
We want Mike back.
Yeah, Kevin's been great to work with.
Yeah.
Lazaro was a challenge. His boss, Mark Henley, which no longer works there, was a challenge also. So,
I thought it was gal, Kathy.
it is. That's the new supervisor of
Kathy.
the region. It was Mark Henley before.
Oh, okay.
Mark Hillen was highly educated, and he came out and wanted to make everything by the book. When we did our last permitting process, he wanted us to run 2 different plants, analyticals for both plants, even though we had a common mixing
Oh.
zone and discharge.
Yeah.
Tried to make it extremely difficult. There was even internal frustration with some of the things that he wanted
Yeah.
to do. And they're doing away with some of it, but there's always modifications and new regulatory requirements that come into play depending on, what EPA follows through with and mandates to the states.
We'll have a lot more information at the April 18th meeting. We should have.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be at Swerve. We're good to go on that. Is there anything else that needs to be discussed?
Thanks for being here. Give
Yes,
us-
Thomas,
Yes,
really,
it
that was
very
huge.
nice to meet you.
Yes.
Yep.
There will be new faces at the table,
It will
and
be.
I'm moving over to, so we had our committee assignments last night. I'm moving over to economic development, tourism, and is it
Jay, then? I think Jay's taking your place.
Okay. So thank you.
Oh.
It's been an eye-opener. You never really know what's going on behind the scenes until you go and look at it or
There's something
with
listen
that.
to it. No,
He's
it's
getting
been
out
great.
just in the
He
nick
didn't
of
say
time,
no.
right?
Yeah.
But that's good if we keep it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Hit the front page.
Yeah, no, when you hear about it.
Yeah,
it's
Seattle
great.
does
Yes,
enough
we wanna
about
stay
hogging the front
page.
page.
What did you say, Randy?
We want to stay ahead of everything.
All right.
County over
Randy.
there.
Then
Bruce, what'd you
the
say?
meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.